He pointed a gun at my head, screaming like I was a criminal. I told him I was spy. He did not care. My 7-year-old daughter was watching. And when the police chief arrived minutes later, he fired the officer on the spot. What happened next shook the entire city. On that day, I was just reaching into my car trunk to grab the bag of oranges I had dropped. Sunlight shimmered off the hood of my black Chevy Impala as I stood in the grocery store parking lot, minding my own business, breathing in the early autumn air. And then, "Put your hands where I can see M." The shout cracked the air like a whip. I turned slowly, confused, expecting to see someone behind me. But no, it was me he was screaming at. The officer, tall, pale, buzz-cut, early 40s, had both hands on his gun, his eyes wild with something far more dangerous than fear. Assumption. My name is Derek Miles. I am 38 years old. African American, standing 6'1", lean but strong from my weekly training sessions, always clean-cut with a close-shaved head and a short beard. Today I wore navy chinos, a tucked-in white button-down, and a windbreaker hardly the uniform of a threat. That did not matter, not to him. He stepped closer, barrel aimed straight at my face, finger twitching near the trigger, on the ground. Now, my first instinct, reach for my head. My second instinct, don't move an inch or I might never move again. People around us froze. Phones did not come out yet. They were too stunned, too unsure. I saw an elderly woman push her cart a little faster toward her car. A teenage boy whispered something to his mom and pointed. A security guard peeked from behind the automatic doors, but did not come out. And me, I raised my hands. Slowly, like a man on a tightrope over lava. "Sir, I am," I said on the ground. This man did not want to hear me. He did not want to see me. He wanted to see a threat, a villain, a suspect, something to conquer. I could see the hate in his eyes, or was it fear disguised as power? I have learned those are twins in the eyes of men like him. I am reaching into my jacket slowly. I said, keeping my tone measured, calm, just like the burro taught me. I am FB agent. My badge is in my inside pocket. I am not a threat. I repeat, I am a federal agent. But he did not listen. He screamed again. Louder. Drop to your knees. You make one move and I swear to God. I could feel the red dot of his sighting laser dancing on my chest. This was it. This was how it ends. Not in a shootout with a dangerous criminal, not rescuing a hostage, not taking down a gang operation, but in a parking lot with a grocery bag of oranges and a gun pointed at my face by a man too blind to see the truth. My muscles tensed, my eyes scanned for cover, but I had none. And then something happened. A small voice cried out, "Daddy." My daughter, Maya, 7 years old, light brown skin, curly hair in a tight puff. She had slipped out of the car to follow me. She stood near the back seat, holding her stuffed bear, trembling. The cop did not even blink at her voice. He just shifted slightly his weapon, now slightly off-center, but still ready. "Maya," I said, my voice cracking. "Get back in the car, baby. Now." She did not move. I could see the confusion in her eyes. The fear. My little girl did not understand. Why would she? She was used to hearing bedtime stories, not shouted commands. She knew her daddy wore a badge and helped people. She did not know that to some people, my skin color erased everything else. My mouth was dry. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "I am going to slowly remove my head now," I said again. Quieter, not for him, for me. And just then another voice. Booming. Commanding. Angry. "Stand down." Officer Raynor. A new figure entered the scene. Broad-shouldered. Black. Dressed in a sharp navy uniform with a gold badge pinned to his chest and silver stripes on his sleeve. The police chief. No less Chief Elijah Brown. The man every officer in this city reported to. He strode up with fury in his step, not waiting for an explanation. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted, pushing Officer Raynor's arm down. "Do you even know who this is?" Raynor blinked, finally seeing me. Really seeing. His eyes darted to the aide now half visible in my jacket pocket. "Sir," he looked suspicious, I thought. "You thought what?" Chief Brown barked. "That a black man getting groceries is a criminal. That is what you thought." There was a pause. A silence heavier than the barrel still pointed in my direction. Raynor looked around. He realized the crowd had grown. Someone was filming now. Multiple someones. And then Chief Brown turned to me. "Agent Miles, are you all right?" I nodded slowly. "Barely." He faced Raynor again. "You are done. Hand me your badge. Now." Raynor's face went white. "Sir, now, or I do it myself." Raynor swallowed hard, reached into his shirt, and handed over the badge. I finally exhaled. I looked over at Maya, now being hugged by a kind stranger, a woman with soft eyes and trembling hands. She whispered something to Maya and guided her gently back to the car. My knees buckled slightly, but I stayed standing, because I had to. Because if I broke down now, if I cried, screamed, lashed out, he would win. And people like him have won too many times already. That night, I did not sleep. I held Maya all night in our living room, the TV muted, my arm around her tiny frame. She asked me one question before drifting off. "Why did that man yell at you, Daddy?" I kissed her forehead. "Because some people see what they want to see," I whispered, "but we have to show them who we really are." Tomorrow, I would go back to work. I would write my report. I would testify if needed. But tonight, I was just a man who survived. And I would make sure no one else had to go through what I did. Not without someone fighting beside them. Because truth wears a badge too. And now, it had a story to tell. I woke up the next morning, still fully dressed on the living room couch. The gray light of dawn filtering through the blinds. Maya's head lay heavy against my chest, her small hand still gripping my shirt, as if she was afraid I might vanish in the night. I did not blame her. I barely believed I was still here either. My name is Derek Miles. 38. African American. By special agent, though, yesterday. None of that seemed to matter. The gun in my face did not pause for my credentials. The uniform on the man holding it did not care that I had sworn the same oath he did. I just wanted to pick up groceries for my daughter's school lunch. That is it. Bread, fruit, juice boxes, But in America, even a routine errand becomes a battlefield when you are a black man in the wrong zip code. Maya stirred awake, blinking with a yawn, and then suddenly tensed when she remembered. Is that man coming back? I shook my head. No, baby. He is not coming back. You are safe. Daddy's right here. She nodded, eyes cloudy with sleep and fear. She was braver than any child should have to be. I helped her get ready for school, making her waffles the way she liked with extra syrup and a side of banana slices. She giggled a little. Finally, when I drew a smiley face with whipped cream on her plate, that sound healed me more than I expected. After dropping her off, I sat in my car in the parking lot outside my borough office building. For 10 minutes, I did not move, just stared at the wheel. My badge was in my lap. It felt heavier than usual. So did my thoughts. What if Chief Brown had not shown up? What if that trigger had been a fraction more impatient? What if my daughter had watched her father die in front of a supermarket? I took a deep breath, then another, and walked into the building. The security guard, Carl, a white guy in his 50s with a friendly gut and a head full of sports stats, looked up from his crossword puzzle and gave me a warm nod. Morning. Agent Miles. You okay? Heard something went down yesterday. Something always goes down. I replied, trying to sound casual. True that, he said with a chuckle, but his eyes lingered on me a little too long. I knew that look, the I want to ask, but I want to look. The I heard the rumors look. That moment when people know something terrible happened, but they are not sure if they're allowed to talk about it. In the elevator, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored wall. My shoulders looked a little more hunched, my eyes a little more tired. I pressed the button to the 5th floor and tried to collect myself before the doors opened. Inside the office, my team was mid-briefing. Special Agent Lauren Choi, 34. Korean American, sharp bob haircut, business casual blazer, looked up first. You okay? She mouthed. I gave her a small nod. Next to her was Agent Mike Ramirez, 40. Mexican American. Square-jawed, loyal to a fault, my longtime partner. He leaned back in his chair, one eyebrow raised, and muttered under his breath when I sat beside him. Heard you had one hell of a Tuesday. I did not respond. Our supervisor, Deputy Director Carl Whitaker. White. Late 50s. Silver hair, thick southern drawl he never lost despite decades in dyed sea, stood at the front of the room outlining a new narcotics case. But even he kept glancing toward me. They had all seen the video. It was already going viral online. That moment, my hands in the air. The cop's gun trained on me. My ass cry in the background. It had all been caught from 3 different angles. At lunch, Whitaker called me into his office. Close the door. Derek, he said. I did. He leaned back in his leather chair, folding his hands over his chest. I want you to know the Bureau is fully behind you. What happened yesterday was unacceptable. I nodded. Thank you, sir. He sighed. But this has gone public. Political. Media wants a statement. They are dragging in the mayor. The union. everyone. And while we support you, we need you to tread lightly. Let the legal process handle it. Tread lightly. I knew what that meant. Be quiet. Don't speak up too loud. Don't be the angry black man. Do you think I did anything wrong, sir? I asked. He met my gaze. I think you were the victim of a terrible mistake. Not the first time, I said. He did not reply. Just tapped his pen against the desk. Permission to take a few personal days. I asked. He nodded without hesitation. Of course. I walked out feeling like I would been patted on the back with one hand and muzzled with the other. My own agency, the one I would risk my life for, was standing behind me, but at arm's length. That night, I got a knock on my apartment door. It was Chief Elijah Brown. He stood tall in his police uniform, hat in hand, eyes tired but firm. Agent Miles, he said. Mind if I come in? I stepped aside. Of course not. He walked into my living room, looked at the family photos on the mantel, the FFB plaque on the wall, and then finally turned to me. I just came to say, I am sorry. He said, you have nothing to be sorry for. You saved my life. He nodded slowly. But Raynor was my responsibility. I hired him. I trained him. And somewhere along the way, I failed to see what he really was. I saw the weight he carried, not just the guilt but the knowledge that this was not an isolated event. That it had happened before. That it might happen again. I am opening an internal review. He said, we are auditing every stop. Every complaint, every body cam. I can fix this overnight, but I let it slide under the rug. That was more than I expected, more than I usually heard. Thank you, I said. As he left, he paused at the door. There is a town hall next week, he said. Community policing. Transparency. I would like you to speak. I hesitated. You are the only one who can tell this story the way it needs to be told. He added. When he left, I looked at Maya asleep in her room, her arms wrapped around her teddy bear again. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began to write. Not a report. Not a complaint, but a speech, because I did not just want groceries. I wanted a future where my daughter would not have to ask, why did that man point a gun at you, Daddy? And maybe, just maybe, that future could start now. They did not say it on the record, not in typed reports or official statements, but I have heard it in the spaces between words, in the narrowed eyes, the loaded silence, the tone that soars the air before the first syllable hits. Boy, that single word, spat like a curse from a century that refuses to die. I am Derek Miles, 38. African American, special agent with the FBI, and still, to some people, I am just a boy. Not a man who has served this country in more ways than one. Not a father, a federal officer, a college graduate with a master's degree in criminal justice. No, just a boy. And last night, while writing the speech Chief Brown asked me to give, that word echoed louder in my head than anything else. The town hall was in 3 days. I was not sure if I wanted to go, if I was ready to bear that much in front of that many. But then something happened the next morning. I went back to the same grocery store, Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I was not going to let fear dictate where I could or could not shop in my own neighborhood. This time, I wore a hoodie, just a regular gray hoodie over jeans. No badge. No blazer. No windbreaker, just a dad running errands. As I was picking up a gallon of milk, I heard someone whisper behind me, "That is the one. That is the one from the video." I turned to see two store employees, young, white, early 20s, staring wide-eyed like I was some kind of spectacle. One of them nudged the other and snickered. "Bet he is suing for millions." The taller one muttered, "Playing the victim card always pays." I did not say anything. I just kept walking. At checkout, the cashier, an older woman with red hair and fake nails, scanned my items in silence. Then, as she handed me my receipt, she smiled too wide and said with sugary venom, "Hope things get better for you, sir." The sir did not sound like respect. It sounded like mockery. And in that moment, I realized something painful. To them, I was not a man who survived a wrongful threat on his life. I was just another angry black man stirring up trouble. As I left, I saw a white customer in the parking lot glance into my trunk. Her eyes darted. Calculating. She clutched her purse tighter. I slammed the trunk a little harder than necessary, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. The weight of invisibility pressed on me like an anchor, because no matter how visible I was on the news, in my community, in the bureau, they still did not see me. That night, I met up with Agent Lauren Choi and Mike Ramirez at a small bar off 7th Street. No uniforms. No suits. Just old friends sharing a booth and a couple of beers. "You sure you are okay?" Lauren asked, sipping her cranberry soda. "I am alive," I said. "That is not the same thing." Mike replied. Lauren leaned in. "Look, Derek, you need to say something. Speak at the town hall. If not for them, for us. For every agent of color who still walks into a station wondering if their badge will save them." I looked at them both. These were not just colleagues. They were family in the trenches. They would seen the same looks, heard the same whispers. "I am tired," I said. "Then speak tired." Mike said, "Speak honest." On the way home, I drove past the police precinct. Outside, a group of protesters had gathered. Signs in the air: "Justice for Derek. Stop police bias." We are not threats. They were not angry. They were pleading. One teenage boy caught my eye. He was holding a cardboard sign with my picture taped to it, and written below in black marker were the words, "He could have been my dad." That broke something in me. Not in a way that shattered, but in a way that opened. Because I was not just a target that day. I was a symbol now. A symbol I did not ask to be, but one I could not walk away from either. When I got home, I tucked Maya into bed. She looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, are you going to tell people what happened?" "I think I have to," I said. "Good." She whispered, "Then maybe they want to do it to someone else." Out of the mouths of babes. I went back to my desk, pulled up the speech draft, and deleted everything I had written the night before. Instead, I wrote, "My name is Derek Miles. I am not a boy. I am a father, an agent, and an American citizen. I was nearly killed for being all three at once, and I will not stay silent. As I typed those words, I could still hear Officer Raynor's voice barking at me in that parking lot. I could still feel the red dot on my chest. But now, I had something stronger than fear. I had truth, I had purpose, and I had a voice. And come Thursday, the whole city would hear it. I have worn the badge for over 12 years. It is more than metal, it is a symbol of sacrifice, of duty, of a promise I made to protect people I would never meet and defend a constitution that does not always defend me. But on that October morning, when a loaded pistol was inches from my face and my daughter watched in horror, I learned something devastating. My badge meant nothing to them. The day of the town hall had come. The city hall auditorium was packed. Reporters lined the back wall. Cameras clicked like insects. Rows of folding chairs filled with parents, teachers, students, retirees, store clerks, nurses, cops in uniform, young people with fists on shirts reading, "Am I next?" And somewhere in that crowd was Officer Raynor, recently suspended, sitting low in the back in civilian clothes, his eyes sharp but dimmed now. I did not let my eyes linger. Chief Elijah Brown stood beside me backstage, adjusting his cuffs. His presence was the only thing grounding me. "You sure you are ready for this?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I am here." He gave a single nod. Then the moderator, Councilwoman Beverly Grant, a black woman in her early 60s with snow-white locks and the steely poise of someone who'd seen too much to be shaken, stepped to the microphone. "Tonight, we confront a hard truth. What happened to Agent Derek Miles should never happen in a nation that calls itself free. He is asked to speak, not just as an agent, not just as a father, but as a man whose dignity was stolen in daylight. Please welcome him." Applause rose, not thunderous, but sincere. Some stood, most did not. It was not celebration. It was attention. I walked to the podium. My hands were not shaking, but my heart was thudding like a drum in a parade of ghosts. I looked out at them all, then at Maya in the front row beside Lauren and Mike. Her little fingers gripped the edge of the chair. I began. "My name is Derek Miles. I have worked for the FBI for 12 years. I have trained cadets. I have cracked human trafficking rings. I have sat with parents as they identified the remains of their missing children. I have tackled suspects on rooftops. And I have done it all with this badge." I held it up. It gleamed in the lights. But 3 days ago, none of it mattered, because when I reached into my jacket in a grocery parking lot, that badge did not stop the gun pointed at me. It did not stop the word boy from being etched into the cop's stare. It did not matter that my daughter was watching. It did not matter that I was calm, that I announced I was federal law enforcement, that I followed every protocol. I was not seen as a man, or an agent, or a father. I was seen as a threat. The room was silent. I am alive today not because the system worked, but because someone good in the system stepped in. Thank you, Chief Brown. But what if he had not? I paused, looked down, then looked up, and I ask you all, what would be happen to my daughter, watching her father's blood spill on the pavement over a bag of groceries? What would that do to a 7-year-old soul? A murmur rippled through the audience. Some say I should be grateful it did not end. Worse, but I am not here for gratitude. I am here for change, because this badge, it should protect me, but so should my skin, so should my silence, so should my stillness, so should my citizenship. Instead, I am forced to prove my humanity before I am allowed to live in it. I step back from the microphone. The pause felt like the edge of a cliff, and then applause. It rose, slow at first, then full, a standing ovation. Even Chief Brown's eyes welled with something he did not dare wipe. Councilwoman Grant gave me a nod, not just approval, respect. But in the back, Raynor did not clap. He just stared. His face was unreadable. Afterward, I stepped off stage and walked into the crowd. People came to shake my hand, thanked me. Some hugged me. One older white woman, maybe in her 80s, whispered, "I am so sorry. I did not understand before." But then a man approached me, tall, white, in a cheap suit. Captain Mason, Raynor's former supervisor. He would kept his distance all week. "You done making us all look bad. Miles." He muttered. I froze. My badge in my pocket suddenly felt like lead. "You did that yourself, Captain?" I replied. "I just turned the lights on." He scoffed and walked away. That night, after tucking Maya into bed, I sat outside on the balcony, a blanket draped over my shoulders, laptop open in my lap. The emails were pouring in. Some anonymous, some kind, some full of venom. One stood out. "Agent Miles, I am a police officer in Ohio. White, been on the force 19 years. What happened to you made me sick." I showed the video to my squad. Some walked out, but some stayed. Some listened. Maybe that is something. Stay strong. Maybe that was something. The badge on my desk reflected the moonlight. I picked it up and turned it over in my hand. They had stripped its meaning from me in that parking lot. But maybe, just maybe, I could give it new meaning, one voice at a time. The part that haunted me the most was not the gun, wasn't the trembling in Officer Raynor's voice as he shouted orders, wasn't even the hollow click of the safety as he tightened his grip. What I could not forget, what replayed like an unwanted loop in my mind, was the silence. The heavy, suffocating silence of the people around me. They watched. They stared. They knew, but no one spoke. I have replayed it 100 times. The mother clenching her purse and hurrying her child toward their car. The security guard peeking through the glass doors, but never stepping out. The teenage boy with the skateboard who froze, then turned away. A crowd of bystanders who knew something was wrong, but whose feet stayed planted in cement made of fear. They say silence is neutral, but I learned that day silence is a side. I am Derek Miles, 38 years old, FB special agent, and a father. And this country taught me that silence can be a weapon, too. Just quieter, more comfortable for those holding it. 2 days after the town hall, the video hit 1 million views. National news picked it up. They called it the parking lot incident. Cable panels debated use of force and police bias and the fragility of trust. They showed my photo alongside bodycam screenshots. But what none of them showed, what none of them could, was that moment of shared stillness, that invisible social contract where nobody dared speak truth into the chaos. I took Maya to the park that afternoon. She wore her yellow overalls and pink sneakers, her hair in tight braids we did together the night before. She was smiling again, climbing monkey bars, racing a boy named Jamal to the swings. But when a police cruiser slowly passed by the edge of the park, her head turned sharply. She ran to me. "Are they here for you again?" She whispered. My heart shattered in ways I did not know it could. "No, baby. They are just driving by." She looked up at me. "But how do you know?" I did not. That night, Chief Brown called. He sounded tired. "We've had a dozen complaints about Raynor's past stops." He said, "All buried, all conveniently unfiled." "Let me guess." I said, "Mostly black men." He exhaled into the receiver. "You would be right. Why was not this caught sooner?" Because no one spoke. I felt a chill run down my spine. They watched. "Ha," I said. "Watched it happen again and again, and did nothing. That is what we are trying to fix now." He replied, "But it is going to take time. Time. That is always the currency they ask the wounded to pay in." Later that evening, I was invited to speak at a high school. Their criminal justice class was studying civil rights. The teacher, as Angela Dawes, a black woman in her 30s with sharp glasses and a gentleness that masked a fire underneath, welcomed me with a firm handshake and introduced me to the class. They were mostly juniors and seniors, a mix of kids black, white, Hispanic, Asian, staring at me like I had come from some distant planet where laws actually meant something. One boy in the back raised his hand. "Why did not anyone help you?" he asked bluntly. I did not answer at first. Then I said, "Because silence feels safe, but silence is never neutral. It either protects truth or protects injustice. There is no in between." Another student, a Latina girl with green streaks in her hair, leaned forward. Would it have mattered? Like, if someone spoke up? And I looked right at her. "It always matters," I said, "even if it does not stop the moment. It shatters the lie that no one sees. And sometimes, that is enough to make someone rethink the next time." They nodded, wrote notes, but I could see it in their eyes they understood. Not because I was preaching, but because they had lived versions of it themselves. A teacher who dismissed them, a cop who hovered too long, a stranger who assumed. As I walked out, as Dawes handed me a folded piece of paper. "From one of the students," she said. It read, "I saw your video. I wanted to scream, but I did not. I just watched. I am sorry. Next time, I will speak." And there it was, the truth that silence, once broken, can echo. That night, I sat on the edge of Maya's bed. She had fallen asleep clutching a stuffed bear. I brushed a curl from her forehead. "I will speak, too," I whispered. "For you, for the ones who froze, for the ones who still can't see." I looked out the window. The moon was full. The city was restless. And somewhere out there, another man might be reaching into his pocket for a receipt. And somewhere nearby, Another officer might be gripping his gun. And somewhere even closer, a crowd might be watching. But maybe, just maybe next time, someone will speak. It happened on a Thursday, 1 week after the incident. I was in the grocery aisle again, the same one where I nearly lost my life. The linoleum floors gleamed under fluorescent lights. And somewhere near the back, an old pop song hummed through the overhead speakers. I do not know why I came back. Maybe I needed to reclaim it. Maybe I needed to stand in that space and remind myself I survived. I had just picked up a box of cereal for Maya when I heard it. Snape. Not loud. Not violent. But sharp. Sudden. I flinched. So did a man nearby. An older black gentleman, probably in his 60s, who was reaching for canned tomatoes. Our eyes met. We both knew. That sound, it could have been a finger snap, a soda can, a shopping basket dropped, but in our bodies. It registered like a trigger. He gave me a slow nod. I returned it. That is the part no one talks about. What happens after? The hypervigilance. The way your body catalogs sounds like threats. The way survival rewires you to scan exits even while picking out produce. I am Derek Miles. 38. African American. Special agent. But these days, I feel more like a wire pulled tight, humming with tension, just waiting for the next snap. After checkout, I passed a bulletin board filled with flyers. Lost pets. Church events. A hand-drawn poster caught my eye. Community March for Justice, Saturday, 10 a.m. Liberty Plaza. I had not planned to attend. I did not like the spotlight, but my phone buzzed. Text from Lauren Choi. You should be there. Text from Mike Ramirez. It is already your story. Might as well walk in it. I sighed. Put the cereal in the trunk. Drove home. That evening, I received a knock at the door. Again. This time, it was not Chief Brown. It was Karen Wells, a white woman in her late 40s. PTA president lives 3 doors down. Always pleasant, always just popping over. She held a plate of cookies. I just wanted to say I am so sorry about everything, she said. Smiling tight, I thanked her, took the plate, and waited. I know Officer Raynor. He is not a bad guy. You know, she added. He just made a mistake. It is not fair he is being dragged like this. There it was, the snap not of sound, but of perspective. I looked her dead in the eyes. My daughter almost watched me die. That is not a mistake. That is a crisis. Her smile faded. I just think we need to come together. She murmured. We are. At the march this Saturday. I said, oh, I will. I am not sure I will be able to attend. Of course you won, T, I said softly, closing the door. I did not feel angry. I felt tired, exhausted by the countless ways people rewrite reality to make themselves comfortable. The next morning, I received a package at the bureau. No return address. Inside was a thumb drive and a note. You do not know me, but I worked the precinct front desk. I saw what Raynor did, not just to you, to others. I saved this before they could wipe it. I am sorry it took me this long. I plugged the drive into a secure terminal. There they were, 6 separate bodycam clips, all showing Rayner stopping black men. No probable cause, no proper procedure. The tone in his voice, the phrases, the posture, pattern after pattern of systemic disdain. I printed a report, compiled the video evidence, walked into Chief Brown's office, and dropped it on his desk. His eyes widened. "Where did you?" It came to me. Anonymous tip. He nodded slowly. This changes everything." "Yeah," I said. "That is what snaps do." He promised immediate action. Internal affairs. Reopenings of old complaints. Rayner was not just suspended anymore, he was under formal investigation for abuse of authority. That Saturday, I stood in Liberty Plaza, a sea of people young, old, black, white, brown, queer, straight. Veterans, students stood shoulder to shoulder. Many held signs. Some wore T-shirts with my name. One read, "My dad wears a badge and black skin." Maya stood beside me, holding my hand. Lauren and Mike flanked us. Chief Brown approached. Cameras were everywhere. I was not supposed to speak, but something snapped, the good kind. I stepped up to the portable mic. I was going to stay silent. Let the system work, but the system does not move unless we do. Cheers. I did not come here as a victim. I came here as a witness to what happens when one man forgets his humanity, and what happens when a city remembers theirs. Applause. To the ones who watched and said nothing, say something next time. To the ones who marched today, thank you. You are the snap that changes everything. The crowd roared. Maya squeezed my hand. And for the first time in days, I smiled. A full, unguarded smile. The kind that comes when fear finally exhales. People say that identity lives in your heart. But I have come to learn it lives in your wallet, not just in your aid, not just in your license, but in the quiet things you carry with you every day, pressed between folded bills and frayed leather. Photographs, receipts, a library card, a daughter's drawing of a smiling stick figure in FBI hat. Proof, not of status, but of story. My name is Derek Miles. I am 38 years old. African American. A father and a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the day Officer Rayner pointed a gun at my head, all he saw was a body. A threat. A target. He never saw the truth tucked inside the wallet I reached for. He did not want to. The wallet is old scuffed brown leather I have had since Quantico. It carries my badge, yes, but also a folded photo of Maya when she was 3, wearing her tiny tutu and chasing bubbles. My FBI credentials sit beside a post-it she wrote that says, "Good luck, Daddy," with a purple heart. I keep them all there, because that is what makes me whole, not the medal. The memory. And on the day Internal Affairs officially opened the misconduct inquiry into Officer Rayner, that wallet became more powerful than any speech I had ever given. They asked me to testify, not just as a victim, but as a federal officer, a witness to the consequences of unchecked authority. I walked into the room in a Navy suit, briefcase in one hand, wallet in the other. My heart did not race. It marched. Officer Rayner sat at the far end of the long hearing room table. Civilian clothes. Hands folded. No longer the man with the gun. Just a man with a record unraveling behind him. The investigator. A woman named Janice Boone. Early 50s. Stern glasses and zero tolerance for lies. Asked me to recount everything. From the oranges I dropped to the red dot on my chest. Halfway through, she asked, "Did you present your badge?" I held up my wallet, opened it, showed the badge, then turned to the back pocket. "This," I said, pulling out Maya's drawing, "is what I was reaching for." I kept the badge behind it. Silence. Raynor's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Boone narrowed her eyes. "Are you telling this review board that your child's drawing, which you carried behind your badge, was nearly mistaken for a weapon?" "I am telling you that to him," I said, nodding toward Raynor. "Anything in a black man's hand is a weapon." That sentence hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Raynor finally spoke. "I thought you were going for a gun." Boone raised her brow. Despite him identifying himself as a federal agent, despite him raising his hands, I panicked. Raynor muttered, "No. You profiled." I corrected. "There is a difference. One can be trained. The other is a choice." Raynor's jaw clenched. "You are twisting this." I leaned forward. I had no weapon. No aggression. I had groceries and a drawing. And you looked in my eyes. And you did not see truth, you saw threat. That is not panic. That is programming. The board went quiet again. Boone's pen scribbled on her pad. The hearing ended an hour later. I left that room not with vengeance, but with clarity. Because, finally, the system was not just watching. It was listening. When I got home, I found Maya sitting at the kitchen table. She was coloring with intense focus. "What were you working on?" I asked. She held it up. Another drawing. This time, it was me standing tall in front of a crowd, microphone in hand. People behind me holding signs that said, "We believe you," and "Justice for all." "You made me a hero," I said, voice cracking. "You are," she said without looking up. "But you forgot your smile." She added it with a crayon, one curved line. The next day, the mayor's office invited me to join the city's Civilian Oversight Committee, a board created to ensure accountability in all future cases of police misconduct. I did not say yes immediately. I did not crave the attention. I never wanted to be a symbol. But I also did not want the next black father to be remembered only by footage of his final breath. Later that week, I visited my mother's grave. She died before Maya was born. I stood beside her stone, wind tugging at my coat, fingers tracing the name etched in granite. "You raised me to believe in justice," I said aloud. "Now I am raising her to fight for it." I took out my wallet, opened it, tucked the new drawing beside the old one. Two versions of me. The man who survived, and the man who chose to speak. And in both of them, truth in my eyes. Some people enter a room with presence, others with noise. But Chief Elijah Brown, he entered like a wave that silenced the shore, not with volume, but with weight, with a history that trailed him like a shadow, and a gaze that said, "I have seen it all, and I still showed up. I am Derek Miles, 38 years old, black, a father, and a federal agent. And that afternoon, when I opened my apartment door to find Chief Brown standing there again, not in his formal dress blues, but in a gray hoodie and jeans, I knew this was not official business. He held a folded newspaper in his hand. The headline read, "Raynor under formal investigation, FBI agent's testimony turns the tide." He stepped inside without asking, as if he knew I needed him to. Maya was not home yet. The apartment was quiet. I had to come in person. He said, "This city owes you more than apologies." I waved him to the couch. "You are the only one who did not wait until they had to speak." He sighed and rubbed his temples. "When I became chief, I swore I would root this rot out, but I was naive. Thought policy reforms could fix what is really in the marrow of this institution." "You are one of the good ones," I said, not to flatter but to acknowledge. He shook his head. "I am one of the accountable ones. That is the difference." He placed the paper on my coffee table and looked me in the eye. "They are firing Raynor." I blinked. "Effective when?" "Effective now." The words hit like a gavel inside my chest. Not out of vengeance, but out of validation. Not because I wanted to destroy a man, but because I needed the system to finally say, "You were right. You mattered. What happened was not okay." "He is lawyered up," Chief Brown continued. "There may be appeals. Civil suits. The unions grumbling. But this is the line. We are drawing it in ink." I nodded slowly. "Good." "And Derek," he said, voice lower. "The mayor is prepared to offer you the Community Trust Award next month. Public ceremony. Big press. I can decline on your behalf if you do not want the attention." I stared at the folded newspaper, my crayon drawing peeked out from under a book beside it me on stage. People cheering. She had added sparkles around my head, a little starburst over my heart. "I do not want the spotlight," I said, "but I want the message sent." He nodded. "Then we will do it." We sat in silence for a while. Two black men who had spent their careers trying to make systems believe we belonged inside them. "You ever wonder," I asked quietly, "how many others did not survive? How many stories never got told?" He swallowed. "Every damn day." He stood up and reached into his pocket, handed me a flash drive. Internal review documents. Complaints never followed up. Raynor's history. And others. I frowned. Others. He nodded. He was not the only one. Just the one that got caught. I felt the familiar H return to my spine. The one that says, "Your work is not done. I need you to see something else." He added, "Come with me." We drove in his unmarked city vehicle to a small community center downtown. Inside was a room, plain walls, folding chairs, a podium, but it was packed. Young officers, cadets, interns, all in quiet attention. Orientation. He explained, "We are rewriting the city's policing curriculum. This is the first class to get it." He nudged me. "I want you to say something." I laughed. "You ambushed me." He smiled. I figured you would come with your wallet. I reached for it instinctively. I walked to the front and turned to face the room. Some of you signed up because you want to protect and serve. Good. Some of you did it for your family, or out of pride. That is fine too. But understand this: if you see injustice and say nothing, you are not a cop. You are just another bystander with a badge. I held up my wallet, showed the badge, then the child's drawing. This did not save me. This almost got me killed. But what did save me? A man who showed up, who stepped between a gun and an innocent life, who refused to let fear speak louder than truth. The room was still. If you ever have to choose between loyalty to the badge and loyalty to justice, choose justice. Every time. On the drive back, Chief Brown said nothing. Neither did I. We did not need to. He dropped me off at home. As I stepped out, he said, "You did not just change the conversation. You changed the culture. I just told the truth." I replied. He nodded. Sometimes, that is the most radical thing a man can do. And with that, he drove off. Maya was waiting at the door when I walked in. "Did you win?" she asked. "No," I said, crouching to kiss her forehead. But today, we did not lose. The courtroom was packed, not with jurors. This was not that kind of trial, but with eyes. Eyes of a city that had watched a single video, shared it like wildfire, and now waited to see if justice had a backbone or just a brand. I am Derek Miles, 38 years old, African American, special agent with the FBI. And I was not here today as an officer of the law. I was here as a man who'd stood on the edge of a gun barrel while the world watched. Today, Officer Jared Raynor, now former officer, was facing a full disciplinary hearing from the Police Integrity Board. A public session, per pressure from both the mayor's office and community activists. This was the fall, but it was not triumphant. It was overdue. Raynor sat at the defendant's table in a plain navy suit. The arrogance he once wore like a second skin had peeled away, layer by layer. In its place, something uglier. Not remorse, but resentment. The kind that festered when a man who'd always been shielded by silence was finally dragged into the light. On the other side sat Chief Elijah Brown. Upright, composed, flanked by city attorneys and community liaisons. And me, seated beside them. Not testifying, observing, watching how truth changes temperature when spoken out loud. The board chair, Judge Rosalind Kane, a stern black woman in her 60s with decades of public service in her gaze, opened the session. "We are here today not only to consider the termination of Jared Raynor's service," she said, "but to confront a question this city has ducked for far too long. What happens when the protector becomes the threat?" Whispers stirred. Phones recorded. History leaned closer. Video exhibits were played again. My hands up, my voice calm. Raynor's shouts. The weapon, Maya's trembling voice from the back seat. Then came the new evidence, 6 bodycam clips. Unlawful stops. Harassment. Language that made your stomach churn. One victim, a college student named Malik Jordan, was invited to speak. I was stopped walking home. Malik said, Voice steady. He asked where I was going. I said I lived 2 blocks away. He said, "Show me." Boy. That word boy, it never leaves you. More murmurs. Next, the officer who had anonymously sent me the flash drive was revealed Officer Linda Greeley. Mid-40s. White. Uniformed. Decorated. She stood with nerves but spoke with power. "I should have come forward sooner." She said, "I saw patterns. I heard the language." I said nothing because I thought the system would swallow me too, but after seeing what happened to Agent Miles, I could not stay silent. I watched Raynor's face as she spoke. He did not flinch. Didn't he blink? As if betrayal was worse to him than the truth. The board asked if he had any words. He stood, and for the first time, he looked at me. No rage. No apology. Just a tired man cornered by facts. I was doing my job. He said, "Is that what you call it?" I asked under my breath. He turned to the board. "I did not mean for it to get this far." Judge Kane leaned forward. "It did not get this far, Ma. Raynor. You did." The board recessed for 20 minutes. I stepped into the hallway, leaned against the marble column. My body felt like stone. My mind, wind. Lauren Choi joined me, holding a water bottle. "However this ends," she said, "you already changed the tide. I am tired of being the tide." I muttered, "I just wanted groceries." She nodded. "But now your voice feeds a current that moves others, whether you want it to or not." When the board returned, their verdict was read. Effective immediately. Jared Raynor is permanently barred from law enforcement in this state. His termination stands. All misconduct findings have been substantiated. This board recommends state-level review for possible criminal charges. The crowd erupted not in cheers, but in breath, like a city finally exhaled. Raynor did not say a word. He stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and walked out. No cuffs, no courtroom drama. Just silence. But it was not the kind he was used to. This silence was not protecting him anymore. Afterward, reporters swarmed the steps outside. Agent Miles. Any comment? I paused, looked into every lens, thought of Maya, Malek, Linda, Chief Brown, my mother's grave, my own trembling hands in that parking lot. Then I spoke. Justice is not revenge. It is responsibility. Today, this city took a step toward it. Let us make sure it is not the last. That evening, I found Maya in her room making signs out of construction paper. She had written in big letters, "Justice is louder than fear." She looked up. "Did we win?" "Daddy." I knelt beside her, hugged her tight. "We are still winning." I whispered, "Every time someone speaks up." The badge was still in my wallet. But now, it sat behind a new drawing, a picture of our family, holding hands beneath a sign that read truth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. It was a warm Sunday morning, the kind where the sun pours like honey across every rooftop, and the breeze carries just enough promise to make you believe the world's not broken after all. The city was quiet but not silent. It breathed, like a body waking from years of unrest. I am Derek Miles, 38, African American, special agent of the FBI, and father to a 7-year-old girl who once asked me why a man pointed a gun at her daddy. Today, she did not ask that. Today, she asked if she could wear her red, white, and blue dress again. Because today, I was being honored. The mayor had arranged a public ceremony outside City Hall. For courage, the plaque said. For truth, I did not want it. Not really. What I wanted was harder to hand out. Accountability, reform, humanity, but I went anyway. Because, sometimes, showing up is the bravest thing you can do. The plaza was filled, not just with officials, but with neighbors, children, teachers, officers, survivors. Signs that read "Justice lives here," and we stand with Miles. And Maya, sitting front row in her dress, holding a small American flag, waving it so hard I thought it might break in half. Chief Elijah Brown stood at the podium. He never asked to be a symbol. He did not want a stage. But when injustice knocked him to the ground, he stood up and said, "Enough." And because he did, we listened. Applause. Mayor Jefferson, a black woman in her 50s with poise shaped by decades of resistance, handed me the plaque. "For service beyond duty," she said. I stepped to the microphone, not to preach, just to speak. My daughter asked if the flag still stands for people like us. I began, my voice slow, steady. After what happened, I did not know how to answer. Heads tilted, hearts leaned closer. But then I thought about moment in the parking lot, when I had my hands raised, when my voice was calm, when I was everything this country asks me to be, and a gun was still in my face. Silence. I thought about the crowd that watched, and said nothing. I thought about the people who saw the footage and finally said something. The officers who broke their silence. The children who marched. The woman who wrote, "I will speak next time." I looked down at Maya, and I realized, the flag does not belong to the perfect. It belongs to the brave, to those who stand up when it is easier to sit down, to those who speak when it is safer to whisper. And yes, to me, too, the applause rose not in claps, but in standing. The sound of recognition, not for heroism, but for truth lived out loud. That evening, after the cameras faded, I walked Maya home under the deepening sky. She skipped ahead, twirling her flag, giggling as it flapped in the breeze. A man passed by a stranger and nodded respectfully. "I am glad you are still here," he said quietly. "Me too," I replied. We reached the porch. The old flagpole on our railing had stood empty since the incident. I had taken it down the day after Raynor drew his weapon. It felt hypocritical, waving a symbol that had not protected me. But Maya tugged my sleeve. "Can we put the flag back up, Daddy?" I hesitated, then nodded. We unfolded it together, the fabric crisp, the colors vivid. I tied it to the pole. She held the end while I secured it. And when I raised it slowly, the wind caught it just right. It danced not as a claim, but as a hope. Not because everything was fixed, but because I had survived. Because a racist officer fell. Because voices rose. Because silence was broken. Because my wallet held more than credentials, it held a story. Because my badge was no longer a target, but a reminder. Because the truth had weight. And now, so did I. As the flag waved, Maya wrapped her arms around my leg and whispered, "You look like a superhero, Daddy." I smiled. "No," I said, lifting her up. "I just remembered how to stand." And high above our porch, the flag did too. The gun did not define me. The silence did not break me. And the badge, though ignored that day, was never what made me strong. What defined me was what I chose after. To speak when it was easier to stay quiet. To stand when fear told me to kneel. To return to the same parking lot, the same streets, the same city, not to forget what happened, but to ensure it never happened again. Officer Raynor lost more than his badge. He lost the lie he had always believed. That power would protect him from accountability. And I found something greater than any courtroom verdict, a daughter who looked at me and saw a man who did not break. On the day I raised the flag again with Maya beside me, I realized something deep in my bones. This country is flawed, but it is mine too. And I will keep fighting until it sees me as fully American. Fully equal. Fully human. Justice is not a moment. It is a movement. It does not arrive with applause. It is built in uncomfortable conversations, courageous truth-telling, and the refusal to accept silence as safety. Sometimes, the most radical thing a man can do is exist with dignity in a system that tries to erase it. Your truth matters. Your voice matters. And no one, not even those with a badge, has the right to take that from you. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think, if it made you see, then do not let it end here. Subscribe for more stories that speak truth. Comment your thoughts because your voice is powerful. Share this video with someone who needs to remember. Silence protects no one. Truth sets everyone free.